Enlightenment ideas about individual rights, property rights, and personal liberties led to significant social, political, and economic disruptions in Europe and around the world. In this class, we will be addressing two related questions. First, how did Enlightenment thinkers express notions of human rights? Secondly, what is the human rights significance of the political revolutions in Europe and the Americas in the 18th and 19th centuries? Some of these revolutions that were influenced by Enlightenment ideas include the English Revolution of 1642, the French Revolution of 1789, and the American Revolution. In his book, The Rights of Man, published in 1791, the English philosopher Thomas Paine argued that the sole purpose of the government is to protect the inalienable rights inherent in every human being. Thus, all institutions which do not benefit a nation are illegitimate, including the monarchy, the nobility, and the military establishment. These and similar ideas influenced the French Revolution of 1789. Enlightenment ideas also influenced political developments in the New World. One prominent political figure who was influenced by Enlightenment ideas in the New World is Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States. Jefferson is a key figure in the American Revolution and the principal author of the American Declaration of Independence of 1776. Drawing on Enlightenment ideas, Jefferson advocated the ideals of secularism, republicanism, and the separation of church and state. The American Revolution started as a small-scale revolt against taxation and tyranny. It aimed to secure the powers of local assemblies from intrusion by the King of England, King George III. The revolution resulted in the creation of the United States in 1776 and ended British control of the 13 colonies. Britain imposed a series of taxes which the colonists thought were illegal. The central premise of the revolution was that there should be no taxation without political representation. Revolutionary leaders opposed colonial laws such as the Tea Act passed by the British Parliament in 1773. The Tea Act allowed the British East India Company to sell tea without the usual colonial tax, thereby allowing it to undercut the prices of the colonial merchants. Americans were outraged that Britain imposed a monopoly without consulting them. The insistence on representative governance by the leaders of the American Revolution echoed Enlightenment liberalism and the ideas of the social contract put forward by philosophers such as John Locke and Jean-Jacques Rousseau. These Enlightenment thinkers wrote that common people had the right to overthrow unjust governments. The American Revolution was a case of practical success of Enlightenment idealism, which provided the rest of the world with a working model of the social contract. The United States Declaration of Independence asserted liberty, individual rights, and equality while challenging the old order in Europe. The Declaration is an affirmation of equal rights and the obligation of governments to citizens. It states, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The Declaration of Independence goes on to state that in order to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. It also states that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on principles that can guarantee their safety and happiness. The U.S. Declaration of Independence asserted that King George III had trampled on the pre-existing rights of the colonists and that his actions justified the establishment of a separate government. This was a very revolutionary idea at the time, which challenged old forms of moral and political authority, such as the notion of the divine rights of kings. The American Revolution was the first wave of Atlantic revolutions that took hold in the French Revolution, the Haitian Revolution, and the Latin American Wars of Liberation. The American Revolution also had global impacts on Ireland and the 1798 uprising, and on Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and as far as the Netherlands. The French Revolution was also influenced by the Enlightenment movement. The key document that emerged from the revolution, the French Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizens of 1789, was profoundly shaped by Enlightenment ideas. With the French Revolution, republicanism replaced the absolute monarchy of King Louis XVI in France, and the country's once powerful Roman Catholic Church was forced to undergo a radical restructuring. Enlightenment notions of freedom and liberty were expressed in the slogan of the French Revolution: liberty, equality, and fraternity. This idea influenced similar revolutions around the world, notably the Haitian Revolution that started in 1791. The French Revolution centered on popular resentment of royal absolutism, the incompetence of King Louis XVI, the rejection of clerical privilege, and the aspiration for republicanism and the freedom of religion. The high point of the revolution was the storming of Bastille, when insurgents seized the Bastille prison, a symbol of tyranny of the Ancien regime, and released its prisoners. The French Revolution resulted in major political and socio-economic changes in France, including the abolition of the monarchy, the execution of King Louis XVI and his queen, Marie Antoinette, which was followed by the Declaration of the Republic in 1792. The revolution also resulted in the abolition of feudalism and the shift of power from the Roman Catholic Church to the state, a process that is described as dechristianization. However, the revolution also created political upheavals and disruptions in French society. The libertarian ideas of the revolution were soon reversed by the era of the radical Jacobins and the Reign of Terror between 1793 and 1794. Napoleon I, who seized power following the French Revolution, inherited a chaotic republic and created a de facto military dictatorship. He orchestrated the Napoleonic Wars of the early 19th century, a series of major conflicts between the French Empire and several European powers. Through the Napoleonic Wars, the ideas of the French Revolution, such as democracy, due process in courts, the abolition of privileges, were all exported around the world. One example of this is the Napoleonic Code, the French civil code established under Napoleon, which influenced the legal systems of many countries around the world that came under French colonial rule. The Napoleonic Code included guarantees of individual liberties and property rights. However, in areas of European colonial settlements, codified definitions of property rights became instruments for expropriating land from indigenous peoples. This is the central paradox of the history of human rights. Rights movements such as the French Revolution and the legal codes such as the Napoleonic Code expanded rights and liberties for certain categories of people, particularly the dominant groups. However, the expansion of rights for these privileged people was sometimes at the expense of other less politically influential and militarily powerful communities, such as indigenous communities. The Haitian Revolution of 1791 was also influenced indirectly by Enlightenment ideas and more directly by the French Revolution. The Haitian Revolution was an anti-slavery and anti-colonial insurrection by self-liberated slaves against French colonial rule in the island of Saint-Dominique, now Haiti. The Haitian Revolution was the largest and most successful slave rebellion in the New World. Enslaved Africans, led by Toussaint Louverture, rebelled and succeeded in ending slavery and also ending French control over the colony. Toussaint Louverture organized an effective guerrilla war against the island's French colonial population and became Governor-General of the colony. He subsequently conquered the Spanish portion of the island and freed the slaves there. In 1802, Napoleon's forces invaded Saint-Dominique and re-established French control. An attempt by French authorities to reintroduce slavery in the island led to a new revolt that ended with the collapse of colonial authority in 1803. Haiti thus became the second nation in the Western Hemisphere after the United States to win its independence from a colonial power. The Haitian Revolution was influenced by the ideas of equality, universal citizenship, and participation in government that was popularized during the French Revolution. The leaders of the Haitian Revolution used as their inspiration the French Revolution's Declaration of the Rights of Man. The Haitian Revolution tested the universality of the ideology of the French Revolution. Did the rights outlined in the French Declaration apply only to French citizens, or did they also apply to people living under repressive governments around the world? Let us now examine the shortcomings and limitations of the American and French revolutions. Although these revolutions did much to advance ideas about human rights, they also had significant limitations on the universal applicability of these rights. For example, the American Revolution was premised on the self-evident equality of all men, while the French Revolution espoused the ideals of liberty, fraternity, and equality. However, these declarations did not abolish slavery and other forms of social exclusion and oppression in these countries. The American Declaration of Independence made the powerful claim that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by the Creator with certain inalienable rights. Yet slavery persisted in the United States, and slaves continued to be sold and bought as chattel because they were not considered equal to other human beings. So despite the liberal language of these declarations, they did not really espouse universal rights or a universal humanity in the same way as the human rights doctrine does today. In the Federalist Papers, which are the essays written by U.S. political leaders to promote the ratification of the United States Constitution, James Madison, one of the founders of the United States Republic, described enslaved African Americans as a mixture of persons and property. Madison argued that slaves were divested of 2/5 of the man and thus equal only to 3/5 of a person. Similarly, the French Declaration of the Rights of Man and of Citizens asserted that men are born free and equal in rights. Yet, this universal claim to freedom and equality excluded many of the common people. Such was the persistent exclusionary impulse of French revolutionary idealism that there were calls in France for Olympe de Gouges, an advocate of women's rights, to be executed at the guillotine after she wrote her Declaration of the Rights of Women and Citizens. Those who wrote the French Declaration, therefore, did not believe that all the rights it included should extend to women, slaves, racial, ethnic, and religious minorities. Despite these limitations, we should recognize the American, French, and Haitian Revolution as manifestations of Enlightenment liberalism and idealism. These political revolutions and the rights declarations they produced marked important watersheds in the historical development of human rights. As one historian has argued, these declarations, talking about the American and the French revolutions, did not resolve all the human rights issues of their time. However, they opened up a previously unimagined space for political debate about rights and liberties. These political revolutions therefore provided important foundations for modern human rights.